Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the latest in our series of webinars of HR Top Tips, this time on supporting your employees' financial wellbeing. My name is Adam Davey, and I'm one of the co-founders of Petaurum HR, and it's great to be with you today. So the purpose of today's webinar, we're looking to achieve three things, really. Firstly, set out the options that are available for employees to support their employees without breaking the bank. We want to share our 5 top tips and explore how these tips can help support your employees' financial well-being. So the webinar will last around 30 minutes with some time for Q&As as well, if anybody has any. So please do submit those either via the chat or via the Q&A function. So firstly, to kick off with a little bit of context, to say that we're living in fairly unusual times is probably the understatement of the decade. But I think the images on there really sum up experiences that lots of people are having at the moment. Increases in inflation, national insurance, cost of our fuel and utility bills, rent. Lots of people are seeing lots of pressure on their take-home pay, and that's really all kind of underpinned by probably the after effects of Brexit and the ongoing effects of the pandemic. So what does all of that mean for us as employers? Well, the more pressures that build up in the background, the more pressure that obviously puts on everyone's salary. And for some employees, that may mean that their salary doesn't actually cover all of their outgoings. Clearly that is going to lead to anxieties for them. And either consciously or unconsciously, some of those anxieties may well be brought into the workplace, which, as I'm sure everybody will understand, that can cause potentially behavioural challenges for people, or performance challenges, or even worse, for some employees, maybe even some mental health challenges. It might mean for some employees they start scaring the job market and looking for a new opportunity that pays a higher wage. They may be asking you as the employer for a pay increase, and whether or not you can afford to do that will be another question. Of course, if you do agree to a pay rise, then it's not just the cost of the increased salary that you'll have to foot. You've obviously got employers' pension contributions, tax and NI overheads, for example, that will also add to your wage bill. And I think it's fair to say that very often, important as base salary is, a pay increase is sadly soon forgotten. It's soon forgotten because it becomes the norm, and it just becomes part and parcel of that expectation month on month. And also, it's very easy for other employers to match that. So, potentially you could be back in the same position next year and the year after and the year after. So really, to get to the crux of our webinar, we just really wanted to share 5 top tips for you that you can consider in order to try and alleviate some of these challenges and problems. So first of all, really just wanted to outline what the 5 tips are and what these options that you might have as an employer. First of all, hybrid working. How might that improve the financial well-being of your workforce? Well, it gives the opportunity to potentially help your workforce reduce childcare costs, but also commuting and other associated costs that go with travelling in and out of the workplace. You could introduce flexible working policies, again, that might have some similar benefits from a financial perspective to hybrid working. There are a whole range of different performance-related pay schemes. Obviously, this is a way to increase an employee's remuneration, but it's based on normally their output and business profits. So there is that element of shared risk and reward. Expert financial planning sessions are another option. These can be in the form of one-on-one reviews that help employees budget and compare the market options that are available to them. So a whole series of different ways of achieving that, either through the Money Advice Service, Citizens Advice Bureau, or independent financial advisors. And finally, employee benefits packages. So again, these are a great way of helping employees make savings, both for everyday purchases and those considered one-off purchases as well. And there are also a range of HMRC approved salary sacrifice schemes that again have a direct impact on an employee's financial well-being. So without further ado, we'll work through the list and we'll start to have a look at these one by one. So first of all, hybrid working. So I think for many employees, they may consider hybrid working, and perhaps not necessarily think about the impact on an employee's financial well-being. Before we get into that, we'll look at a bit of background around hybrid working, because I think all too often, for many employees, it can either be implemented or disregarded based perhaps on a personal preference or even an initial hunch. And it's really important to think about it, carefully, to step back and look at whether a different type of working arrangement will actually meet the needs of your business and of your people. Interesting poll that was recently carried out by Eurofound, which actually revealed that 78% of employees who participated in their survey indicated a preference for working from home, at least occasionally post-COVID. So this really is something that could have a positive impact from an employee's point of view. So, people often think of hybrid working as either home or office, so it's all about location, but it's more multidimensional than that. So here are some of the kind of key issues and considerations that we see need to be considered. Location is, of course, important. Home, office, or even a mobile location. Is it a fixed office? Are there shared hot desks? Or indeed, is there no permanent office hub? It really is about making that kind of key decision in terms of what role an office plays in terms of the delivery of your business. Working patterns, again, are another important factor. Full-time remote, full-time in an office, part-time, part of the week, part of the day, remote or in an office. Doesn't necessarily apply to the whole organisation. Might only apply to certain roles or certain teams. And again, it might be on a fixed or perhaps scheduled basis. So there might be certain times of the year when working in a different location might be more appropriate. But ultimately, it's really all about making it fit with the pattern that you need it to in order to meet your business needs, and understanding actually what the impact is on the individual's role. So if that individual has a need, to be with other people and interact with others in real time, then that may well drive your decision. There's really a whole range of different upsides and challenges, I guess, with hybrid working, and there's just a few there. I mean, clearly from an employer's and an employee's perspective, they may well see things slightly differently, but as you'll see there, cost is one of the kind of key considerations, and that's both for employer and employee in relation to the provision of those different working spaces. If we move on to flexible working, again, quite similar really to aspects of hybrid working, but the benefits for an employee might be around the flexibility for when you need them at your workplace. So unlike hybrid working, which is a fundamental and strategic review of where people need to be in order to deliver their jobs, flexible working doesn't really tackle that fundamental issue, and it's more around providing flexibility for your employees in terms of when they need to be at the workplace. So if you've got variable start and finishing times, it may provide the opportunity for employees to travel at off-peak times, for example. It may help them reduce their childcare and other support costs. So, for example, if they can start a little later in the working day, they may, for example, not have to fund preschool breakfast clubs if they've got children of school age. From a positive perspective for the employer, it can provide an extension for the working day. So, if people are starting later in the morning, then it's likely that they would be finishing slightly later into the evening, or vice versa. And that can actually have a positive impact in terms of customer service and coverage. It's always important to think with these things, are other employers doing what we're thinking of doing? And if not, that can give you a real competitive advantage, and it can certainly help in terms of both attracting talent and retaining the really good members of the team that are already in the business. And something like flexible working, is really easy to set up and can be reviewed if circumstances change. It's likely that you would want to put some sort of a framework around your flexible working, so put some rules in place so everything is easily understood and consistently applied. But it's important as the employer to have that flexibility, if circumstances change or it's not working, for example. So in terms of performance-related pay, again, I think the benefits to an employee from a financial perspective are relatively easy to see, in that it's a really great way to link their performance to their remuneration, and thereby providing an incentive to motivate employees to perform to their very best and deliver the maximum output. Doesn't unduly compromise business profits. Clearly it's important to design the scheme so that any performance-related pay is effectively funded by increased revenue and increased profits. There's no point putting such a scheme in place if it's going to make the performance of the business worse. And again, it's a great way of helping employees to feel as though they're being rewarded for their efforts and achievements. And again, if it's something that other competitor organisations aren't doing, can have a great impact in terms of recruitment and retention. It does take a little bit more time to set up. I think it's important to get some help and advice when you're doing these things, because there's always the law of unintended consequence with things like performance-related pay, bonus and commission schemes, and you need to make sure that you're not only driving employees and motivating them to deliver the right outputs, but also that they're doing that in a way that maintains your values and core behaviours. So you don't want to be motivating people to achieve more money if it's going to compromise your values and business culture, because ultimately that will damage all sorts of things, including your reputation. So really important to get those schemes set up and regularly reviewed. In terms of financial planning sessions, again, I think this is a direct way of supporting employees' well-being, and for some, this is a service that perhaps they can't afford individually. Some of the larger IFAs will actually provide this service for free. So, it is actually not something that will necessarily even cost the business anything. And I think putting some time and resource into organising a relationship with an IFA that will come in and provide some financial planning sessions for your teams is a really good way of investing in their financial security. It helps them with not only their kind of current situation, but also thinking about the future and ensuring that they are investing and acting appropriately now in order to be able to live the lifestyle that they want when they come to think about retirement. So all of that will have a knock-on effect to mental well-being as well, in terms of reducing stress and anxiety. And again, as we've said with some of those other tips, if this is something that other employers aren't doing, again, don't forget the positive impact on recruitment and retention. And then we move on to employee benefit schemes. So there are a whole range of different employee benefit schemes out in the marketplace, as you'll know. Slight declaration of interest here in that you Benefits Cloud is our own employee benefits platform. Really great employee benefits platform, by the way, just to drop that in. But these sorts of schemes are great in terms of helping employees make their net pay go further. So they will typically pull together a whole range of different retail offers, benefits, discounts, and special deals, and enable employees to save money when they make those purchases. Platforms such as Benefits Cloud, pull all of those into one place, and also provide a great online presence so that your other benefits can all be hosted in a single location as well. So in addition to having all the retail discounts and deals and special offers, you can host details of your pension scheme and perhaps health schemes and salary sacrifice schemes, which we'll come on to in a moment. So you're really creating almost a benefits intranet within the business that will really help to focus the availability of all those different offers and ways to save money. They're really easy to set up and administer, and certainly from a Benefits Cloud perspective, very, very competitively priced. So, a really good way of just adding that little bit of extra value to employees and helping them with everything from discounts on their weekly grocery shopping all the way through to a holiday or a car or some kind of really special purchase. Salary sacrifice schemes are often included as part of a business's benefits package. A salary sacrifice scheme may be applied to pensions, it may be applied to a cycle to work scheme, for example, workplace nursery, those sorts of things. And it's a contractual agreement between the employee and the employer, where effectively the employee exchanges a proportion of their pensionable salary for non-cash benefits. So in practice, what that means is that their salary is reduced in cash terms to take account for the non-cash benefit, and then tax and NI contributions are paid on that lower amount. The benefit of that, of course, is that the employee pays less tax and less NI contributions, and the employer also pays less NI contributions. So whilst there's often an element of setup cost with salary sacrifice schemes, that can often be recovered and reflected in terms of the employer's NI savings. Important point to note is that salary sacrifice arrangements must never reduce an employee's earnings below the national minimum wage. So they're not appropriate for some employers, and they're not appropriate for employees at the lower end of your wage bill, simply because of that that threshold with the national minimum wage. They need to be HMRC approved. HMRC will need to be notified about the salary sacrifice scheme, but again, they are a great way of helping employees save money. I think it's also important when you're looking at the design of an employee benefits scheme, just to think about this really simple formula here in terms of wellbeing plus engagement equaling performance. So our philosophy around wellbeing has always been that financial wellbeing is a fundamentally key part of that. But in addition, an employee's mental wellbeing and physical wellbeing are equally important. And our argument is, if those three aspects of wellbeing are all in order, you know, they're being well looked after by both the employer and the employee. If the employee is engaged with the business, they are really aligned with the business's purpose, and they are really committed and going the extra mile, then the natural consequence of those two things is that inevitably their performance will be enhanced, and that can only be really good news for them, but also for the business as well. So I think just think about employee benefits in that slightly wider context too. So those are our top 5 tips. Quite a quick run through. Really conscious this is a lunchtime session, so we wanted to try and keep this limited to half an hour. I haven't seen any questions coming through in the chat yet, which is absolutely fine. So really that just helps me move on here and just say, thank you very, very much for joining us today. Really appreciate you sparing the time out of your busy schedules. Please do keep in touch. All sorts of ways to follow us on social media. Have a look at the blogs and different resources that we share on the website. We do run a monthly HR hour session for anybody that would like a bit of free advice, or alternatively our monthly newsletter as well. So that's me, Adam Davey. Really delighted that you've joined us for this bite-sized session on improving your employees' financial well-being. Thank you very much, everyone. Great to see you, and enjoy the day if you can keep out of the way of Storm Eunice. Thanks very much.